New Horizons received updates for nearly 2 years, from launch up until November 2021, and although they added a lot of new content in this time, some updates remain unreleased. These have been discovered by data miners, and they paint a picture of some of the content we could have gotten, but didn't. I've decided to make a compilation of some of my past videos going over the most interesting unreleased updates New Horizons has to offer. Let's see exactly what we're missing out on. Also, leave a like if you wish they had tried to keep updating New Horizons. I needed more. So this first one was actually discovered quite a long time ago by Ninji, who is a prominent Animal Crossing New Horizons data miner. Ninji discovered so many things which did actually make it into the game, including the 2.0 version. And this one makes total sense. It's the museum shop. Now, at this point, it seems unclear whether this code could have just been misinterpreted or not. However, it is certainly interesting when you look at the museum layout. Now, of course, we do have the roost newly added to the left side of the museum. However, the right side remains empty, and it certainly does look a bit strange. This definitely does make me think that at some point they could have planned to have a museum shop in the game. After all, we did have one in Animal Crossing New Leaf, and the museum is already so upgraded with many different features in this version, so it would have made sense for them to add this as well. Sadly though, this is something that we've never seen, and due to the fact that they don't plan on doing any more major updates, it doesn't seem like we will ever see this at any point in the future. Still though, it's always going to kind of bother me that the museum just doesn't feel very symmetrical at the moment. It would have just been so nice to have another door on the other side and some kind of museum shop where you could pick up some really cool new items. There is also blabbers selling posters, so maybe that's what the code meant, but I really doubt it would be that well defined all that time ago just for it to be blabbers selling some posters. I don't think that's what it was. An observatory on this side would have been absolutely fantastic as well, like we had in the past Animal Crossing games, but I really don't think that was ever planned for Animal Crossing New Horizons, which is certainly a shame because it would have been nice to have Celeste do more in the game. I do want to add on, however, that there is one theory about this particular data mine, which is that the museum shop which was discovered isn't actually a standalone building, and instead it was misinterpreted. Really what it was is a little shop that you get when you talk to blabbers. Now this would make a lot of sense, but it just makes me wonder how an entire shop would be misinterpreted like this. From what Ninji said, it definitely sounds like it was supposed to be a standalone building, which would make sense as that's how it was in Animal Crossing New Leaf, and it could have gone opposite the roost like I said. But it does make you wonder if it ended up just becoming Blabber's little shops where he sells you the posters. Definitely not super thrilled about how the shop turned out in the end. I feel like it's much more disappointing compared to the New Leaf version. I would have loved to have seen that version return to New Horizons, but unfortunately that was never the case. Speaking of the museum, it seems like there was some kind of planned gyroid section here as well. Now, we don't know exactly what this means, it's all very vague, but I definitely could envision the fact that maybe at some point there was going to be some kind of gyroid display or section in this little boxed off area in the roost. The layout of the roost is honestly so strange, and this whole area just being completely blocked off like this does feel very unusual, like maybe at some point there could have been something there. As we all know, Brewster absolutely loves gyroids, and they made their return in Animal Crossing New Horizons, and they're just cuter than ever. You can also now grow them in a different way, which you could never do in past Animal Crossing games, so gyroids are really awesome in this version, but there are no real incentives to collect them in the game, aside from displaying them, which is definitely fun to do. It would have been really cool if you could actually display gyroids in the roost and maybe they would sort of chime along with the music or something like that, or maybe you would actually have to complete some kind of collection challenge in here as well. I would have really loved that, but it seems like something they decided against doing. It is also maybe possible that this code could be referring to the gyroids which are in Brewster's stockroom. However, again, I doubt they would have defined this just for a little area behind him, which isn't actually used for anything. It doesn't have any functionality. We'll never really know what they were planning unless somehow they come out and mention what things they were going to add but didn't, which I would actually love to hear, though I personally don't see Nintendo talking about that at any point. That would be amazing though, and I'd love to know exactly what was scrapped. Regardless though, I do absolutely love the new gyroids in Animal Crossing New Horizons, and I love the fact that you can get a special Brewstoid from Brewster as well. I'm really happy that they added that in. Whilst we're in the roost, I just wanted to quickly mention that it doesn't seem like there was ever any evidence that we could work in the roost like you could back in Animal Crossing New Leaf, so it seems like this is something that they never planned upon adding to the game. This is another thing that I definitely find a shame, as I did love working here in the past games, and I much preferred getting the rewards this way rather than just drinking at the roost every day, but it is what it is, and I'm still super happy that the roost did eventually make it back to Animal Crossing New Horizons, since it was probably one of the most speculated unreleased updates until it came out. One thing in New Horizons that still confuses me to this day is why Nook's Cranny only upgrades one time. I think most of us were generally expecting that we would see some form of upgrade for the shop, like we had in pretty much every other Animal Crossing game. Even if this was just one more final version to tie up things nicely to add another stage of progression, that would have been a fantastic update. But it never came. Aside from us expecting an upgrade because of the past games, we actually had some evidence seemingly that Nintendo was planning an upgrade too, thanks to data mines. Now, if you don't know what a data mine is, effectively certain people will look through the code of a game to see what interesting things they can find. Often this gives us a good idea of what future updates we can expect within a game. For example, we knew way back in 2020 that Brewster and the Roost would be coming to the game, which they finally did later on in 2021. In fact, pretty much every data mine proved to be accurate in the end. Pretty much all of these data mines came from Ninja over on Twitter, who proved themselves to be an incredibly reliable and accurate data miner. However, one of these data mines specifically about Nook's Cranny seemingly never happened, at least as far as we know. Ninja shared way back in 2020 that a third Nook's Cranny was referenced in the code of the game, but not much else was detailed about it. This would have appeared to be a third upgrade, since at that point we already had two versions that are still in the game to this day. But even with the 2.0 update coming and going and major updates being discontinued, this upgrade for Nook's Cranny seemingly never came. So what exactly happened? Well, there's a few ideas that make a lot of sense. The first is that Nintendo did plan on adding a third version of Nook's Cranny to the game, but for some reason they scrapped this idea. Sometimes data mine content is something that Nintendo was working on, but they changed their mind for whatever reason. Maybe they just preferred the idea of having a more quaint shop on what is originally a deserted island, feeling like a more elaborate version wouldn't really fit the style of the game. Or perhaps plans got cancelled when Nintendo decided to upgrade Halves Island, creating a whole bunch of new shops for players to use there. Maybe they felt like an upgraded Nook's Cranny would have been pointless with the variety you get on Halves. It's also possible that this code was misinterpreted and Nintendo never really planned a third version of the Nook shop. Maybe it was actually in reference to the second floor of Nook's Cranny, which technically you can access using some glitchy methods. Nothing is actually up there, but it's still a space with a modelled staircase. Technically, Nook's Cranny also did get minor upgrades too, with new limited time items being added and a whole inventory of new items being made available there with the 2.0 update. Not really a different version of the shop itself though, but maybe this is what Nintendo actually meant to begin with. Whatever the reason, the absence of this third Nook's Cranny is really sad to me. I think having a much bigger space to shop in would have been fantastic. You could have brought back Gracie, who could have ran the high end of the shop and just generally provided players with more options, which would have been really great. This is how it was in basically every other game, so I would have liked it to be this way in New Horizons 2. After all, New Horizons is the most advanced of all the games, so it feels odd to me that they went backwards in this one particular way. At the end of the day, we may never know what happened to this third Nook's Cranny version, if it even truly existed. Ninja, like most other Animal Crossing data miners, have now basically retired from the game as it's been out for so long and updates have stopped. So these sorts of things will remain a mystery unless Nintendo ever specifies what content they would have planned on adding to the game, but they couldn't. That would definitely be a really cool thing to learn if they ever decided to share that information, although sadly Nintendo is honestly pretty secretive about this kind of thing. Back in Animal Crossing New Leaf, Dr. Shrunk was the one in charge of giving us our reactions, which were called emotions back in that game. When Shrunk made his return in the 2.0 update, I was kinda hoping that he might give us some more reactions, but he didn't. This was surprising to me though, as we'd known for a while that there were actually some secret reactions hidden in the game that had been ported over from Animal Crossing New Leaf. As you can see here shared by Dobutsu no Mori on Tumblr, there are a whole bunch of reactions that never made it into Animal Crossing New Horizons, yet work fully as intended for the most part. The most famous of these and the most desired was the Dr. Shrunk Funk Shuffle, which is an iconic reaction. Given his minimal role in New Horizons, I guess it makes sense why we didn't get this one much earlier on, but the fact that it is there hidden in the game is just really frustrating, and it makes me wish Nintendo had added it. Maybe they ran out of room for reactions, after all we have 2 full pages now, but it confuses me why they would work on totally new ones rather than adding in some of these old beloved ones that were just there. Speaking of old beloved things, it looks like the crossover villagers from past Animal Crossing games were at least at some point thought about being added to the game. A data mine showing all of the villager mottos for their photographs in the game actually revealed that there were placeholders for the crossover villagers. These mottos were suspiciously empty, but the villager species, like you can see here bird, lined up with all of the crossover villagers. As far as I remember, it even lined up with the Sanrio villagers who eventually did get added to the game. I really don't understand why Nintendo was so anti-crossover in this game. There was so much potential, yet apparently Mario is the only one who deserves it for some reason. I guess Chris Pratt will be happy. Now this one is especially painful to me. It's the fact that rugs outdoors actually do work in Animal Crossing New Horizons, and through certain means, players have discovered that you have been able to actually put rugs outdoors, and for the most part they do actually work. This is definitely the case of Nintendo deciding we just don't want this feature in the game. They could have done it pretty easily, there weren't even that many rugs for them to work on, and like I said, it's possible to do it with basically all of them. Some of them may be a little bit glitchy, but they could have fixed that. So it's pretty safe to say that Nintendo just didn't feel like this feature was right for the game, but I have no idea why. It would have been so good, and there's so many cool rugs that would have worked really well as a design on the island. We also have some unreleased accessories that villagers can hold around the island. Now these items for the most part were actually added to Red's raffle on Harvey's Island, which was really cool, and it was great to be able to get most of them, but some of them were not added for some reason, and I don't really know why. I guess Nintendo had felt like the ones they did add as holdable items was enough, but some of the ones they didn't were really cool, like the magnifying glass for example, so it is a little bit of a shame. So those were some unreleased updates that New Horizons could have gotten. Which of these do you wish we could have seen added to the game? Let me know in the comment section down below. If you made it to the end, be sure to comment Bob's Gang so I know you did. If you enjoyed, leave a like and subscribe for more content.